Before them stood a golden cage, imprisoning the most terrifying army in human history. Their limbs were not only shackled, their spirits sealed, but even their mouths were embedded with divine steel forged from ancient cloud iron. Yet, despite enduring for tens of thousands of years, this army remained immortal and indestructible, and they were the Titans, the very beings that even the gods feared, including Zeus himself. Legend has it that at the dawn of humanity, a cataclysmic war broke out in the heavens, ending with the Olympian gods, led by Zeus, emerging victorious. The defeated Titans, however, were imprisoned in the dark abyss of hell, condemned to never rise again, until billions of years later, a masked man wielding the Epiros divine bow suddenly appeared. With divine power, he destroyed the cage that bound the Titans, signaling the reignition of the war between the gods and the rise of the darkest time for humankind. As the awakening of the Titans was sensed, 5 holy lights descended from the sky. These were the gods of Mount Olympus, led by Zeus, confronting their ancient enemies. A massive battle was imminent. Poseidon, the god of the sea, led the charge with his trident, striking with the power of thunder, instantly defeating the sun before him. Zeus, the king of the gods, effortlessly wielded his weapon, dismantling his opponents with ease as they charged at him. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, showcased her formidable power as she fiercely swung her scimitar, cutting down the Titans in her path. However, even with such extraordinary power, they could not withstand the relentless assault of the Titans. Even Poseidon, the sea god, was suppressed and unable to resist, and Athena was gravely injured, pinned to the wall by her own scimitar. Seeing the Titans' unstoppable momentum, Zeus was forced to make a difficult decision. Using his supreme divine power, he forcibly snapped the statues that supported the mountain, causing the entire mountain to begin collapsing. At the last moment, Zeus returned to the heavens, carrying the nearly lifeless Athena. Saint Phaedra awoke in deep fear, realizing that the scenes she had just witnessed were the future she had foreseen, and the one who released the Titans was none other than the current king, Hyperion. Once, he too had been a devout believer, but when his wife and child succumbed to illness, the gods he had worshipped chose to remain silent. This shattered Hyperion's faith, and he swore to find the Epiros divine bow left behind by the gods and release the imprisoned Titans, so that the gods could experience the taste of despair. Phaedra, who possessed the ability to foresee the future, became key to locating the divine bow. However, by the time the king reached the temple, Phaedra had already escaped. In his fury, Hyperion ruthlessly doused the priest in lamp oil and set him on fire, burning him alive. He then ravaged all of Greece. Those who refused to reveal the prophet's whereabouts were thrown into the copper oil pits, where they were roasted alive. Those soldiers who surrendered, once they lost their use, were also brutally stripped of their lives. Soon, the king's army massacred another village. As the king's soldiers were about to kill his mother, a man named Theseus rushed out, recklessly charging toward them. With the strength to face 1,000 enemies, Theseus swiftly took down several soldiers, then used his spear to save his mother at the critical moment. But outnumbered, Theseus was captured, and in the end, he could only watch as his mother was killed by King Hyperion himself. The soldiers intended to execute Theseus, but the king stopped them. Rather than killing or slaughtering villages, he preferred to torture and enslave. Thus, Theseus and the other captured villagers were sent to the mines as forced laborers. The tragic fate of Theseus and the brutality of King Hyperion were witnessed by the gods of Mount Olympus. Upon hearing that the king was slaughtering all pregnant women because of his own loss, the gods were filled with fury, but due to the rules of the divine realm, they could not intervene in human affairs. At that moment, Zeus approached, and the gods asked if he could show mercy and intervene to save the innocent people. Surprisingly, Zeus refused once more, stating, "We cannot interfere in human affairs. We must trust humanity." Though Zeus appeared calm on the surface, inside, he was anxious. But now that the words had been spoken, he could only hope for Theseus to stop the king's conspiracy in time. What Zeus did not know was that after witnessing his mother's death, Theseus had completely collapsed. He was then shackled and sent to the mines, where the dual torment of body and mind nearly cost him his life. Fortunately, he met the person who was destined to change his fate. Meanwhile, in his quest for the Epiros divine bow, King Hyperion had nearly destroyed all the temples. In the end, the remaining goddesses could not escape, and were captured and imprisoned. Since the king could not yet determine which of them was the prophet, the priestesses' lives were spared for the time being. But while out fetching water, Phaedra accidentally bumped into the unconscious Theseus. Her face changed drastically. With her prophetic abilities, Phaedra sensed that this man would soon save the 3 realms. Taking advantage of the guard's distraction, Phaedra approached Theseus, fed him some water, and encouraged him to stay strong and survive. As night fell, the other three goddesses asked Phaedra if she had foreseen anything. Phaedra replied that she had encountered the one spoken of in prophecy. As planned, the priestesses began reciting sacred verses. Hearing the noise, the guards were overcome by lust and prepared to assault the pure priestesses. Fortunately, the priestesses were well prepared and successfully killed the guards. For the future of Greece, the three goddesses chose to stay behind to delay the soldiers, allowing Phaedra and Theseus to escape. Soon, news of their escape reached King Hyperion. The soldiers rushed to stop them, capturing the three priestesses who had yet to flee. But under the king's interrogation, the three insisted that they were the prophet and refused to reveal the location of the Eperos divine bow. At that moment, a soldier informed the king that one of the priestesses had escaped. Connecting the dots from the three women's statements, the king immediately realized that the one who had fled was the prophet. Furious at missing the location of the divine bow, the king killed the soldier who had failed him with a spear. He then dispatched his most trusted subordinate, Mondragon, to capture the prophet and bring her back. Meanwhile, Theseus and the others, unaware of the danger drawing near, hid in a cliff near the Black Sea, searching for a way to escape. Just then, a merchant ship sailed across the sea, seemingly heading south. The other laborers appeared indifferent, as where they went didn't matter to them, but Phaedra disagreed, feeling that since she could foresee the future, the gods must have a task for her. Theseus, too, refused to go south. He decided to seize the ship and head north to Hyperion's temple camp to avenge his mother's tragic death. Though the other laborers were skeptical, they joined Theseus' cause, believing it would increase their chances of survival. However, they did not expect that many soldiers had already been ambushed aboard the merchant ship. Meanwhile, on Mount Olympus, Athena and her brother Hephaestus were watching Theseus' every move. Seeing that the group was surrounded by soldiers, the siblings could no longer remain passive. Since it was at sea, they called upon Poseidon to act, promising to plead for him later. Poseidon, who already disliked Zeus' indifference, was further persuaded by the siblings' support. He immediately leaped from the heavens into the sea. With Poseidon's trident, a massive wave surged toward the merchant ship. Phaedra, having sensed the danger, quickly pulled the others into a cave along the cliff. The Black Sea's surface was covered in oil, and though they fled quickly, they managed to escape with their lives. Though they were covered in grime, sticking to the principle of ladies first, the men waited until Phaedra was cleaned up before attending to themselves. Theseus, originally a staunch atheist, had his beliefs changed after witnessing Phaedra's prophetic abilities. The merchant ship was destroyed by the wave, and now, Theseus didn't know what to do next. He asked Phaedra, "Have you seen anything else to help us move forward?" Phaedra thought for a moment and replied, "I saw you holding the divine bow and submitting to Hyperion." Theseus claimed that this could never be, because he had killed his own mother. Phaedra told him he should first personally bury his mother. Phaedra's words made Theseus feel deeply guilty. After hearing her, he followed her advice, returned to the village to bury his mother, and placed her body in the temple. Unexpectedly, at that moment, Theseus noticed something strange about a stone nearby. He fetched tools to break it open and was amazed to find the legendary bow of Hyperion hidden inside. Just as Theseus was about to take hold of the bow and test the strength of the beast sent by King Hyperion, the creature appeared and ambushed him. The beast, standing over 2 meters tall, wielded a massive club, and before Theseus could react, his arm was slashed with several deep cuts, and he was then slammed into a wall. Theseus decided to counterattack. He picked up a fallen kitchen knife and aimed for the beast's knee, striking downward. However, the beast's tough skin and thick flesh made Theseus' attack ineffective, only angering the creature further. Fortunately, Theseus was determined and, in the end, using his perseverance and intelligence, he successfully killed the beast and severed its head. Just as Theseus was catching his breath, Phaedra and the others, waiting outside the temple, were ambushed by soldiers under the king's command. Outnumbered, Phaedra was quickly captured. In a moment of crisis, Theseus arrived and quickly drew the bow to shoot. Despite not having a sword, the bow transformed into a glowing arrow at his command. The power of the arrow was so immense that even from hundreds of meters away, it successfully killed the target soldier. Thanks to this heroic rescue, and after spending so much time together, Theseus won Phaedra's heart. That night, the two kissed. Phaedra lost her virginity, which meant she no longer possessed the ability to prophesize the future. The next morning, they gathered again, ready to continue their journey to the temple where King Hyperion resided. They hurried on, and meanwhile, King Hyperion wasn't idle. He had arrived at the foot of Tartarus mountain, the last line of defense for the Greeks. The king's ultimate goal was to dominate all of Greece and release the imprisoned Titans. Seeing the fortress-like defenses being built, a traitor soldier kindly warned that the Greek defense was impregnable, but the king dismissed it, confident that his army was invincible. Meanwhile, Theseus and his group, traveling north, finally arrived at the temple where the king had previously stationed his forces, only to find that the army had already moved out, heading toward Tartarus mountain. As they were about to leave, they suddenly heard a strange noise. The priest among them became agitated and rushed into the temple, attempting to push over an iron bull statue standing in the courtyard. Phaedra and the others soon arrived, and as the noise grew clearer, her emotions began to break down. When the iron bull was toppled and opened, they discovered 3 captured priestesses inside. Even in their final moments, they repeatedly spoke the words, "I am the prophet." The fate of the sisters caused Phaedra great pain. Theseus realized that the king's army had not fully retreated and seemed to be waiting for them to walk into a trap. However, the priest, now losing his composure, picked up a knife from the ground and rushed out. Just as Theseus had expected, it was all a trap set by King Hyperion. After they walked right into the trap, Mondragon, a soldier hiding in the shadows, appeared with an army of soldiers. Outnumbered, Theseus had his bow knocked away and stolen. Just as he was about to meet his end, the god of fire, Hephaestus, and his sister, Athena, could no longer sit idly by, and they appeared on Earth to join the battle. After Hephaestus dealt with the soldiers, Athena also appeared. She brought magical horses to Theseus and the others, enabling them to travel at the fastest speed to Tartarus mountain. Otherwise, if the king obtained the divine bow and released the Titans, it would be too late. As soon as she finished speaking, Zeus appeared on Earth. Having learned of the siblings' actions, seeing Zeus' angered expression, Athena immediately knelt and begged for forgiveness, while Hephaestus was unbothered, admitting that he did nothing wrong. In order to set an example, Zeus grabbed his flame whip and killed his own son. Before leaving, Zeus, with some anger, told Theseus that no gods would help them, but he trusted him not to disappoint him. With the help of Athena's magical horses, Theseus and his group quickly reached the base of the Tartarus wall and met with their leader, Helios. Under Helios' guidance, Theseus and Phaedra met the Greek king. However, when they revealed King Hyperion's conspiracy to the Greek king, the king didn't believe them and even planned to make peace with Hyperion. The Greek king's attitude was shaped not only by his atheism but also by his disdain for Theseus' background, believing that a bastard could not be trusted. Seeing that the situation had reached this point, Theseus no longer cared about hierarchy and immediately began to argue with the Greek king. Meanwhile, King Hyperion had obtained the long-desired divine bow and learned about the descent of the gods. To prevent the soldiers from losing morale, the king killed the soldier who knew of this. He then summoned the traitor soldiers who had previously joined him, and from them, he learned of Theseus' origins. Having come from a peasant background himself, the king knew that the Greek king would never accept an illegitimate son born from rape. Thus, King Hyperion decided to use tactics to force Theseus to join his ranks. That night, he sent an emissary with an olive branch to talk to Theseus. Thinking of Phaedra's prophecy, Theseus knew some things were unavoidable, so he agreed to meet with the emissary of King Hyperion. The emissary wasted no time and immediately conveyed the king's desire to recruit Theseus. Theseus asked if the king knew that he had killed his mother. After hearing Theseus' words, the emissary removed his mask, revealing himself to be King Hyperion. The murderer of his mother stood before him, and Theseus eagerly wanted to seek revenge. But the king had already prepared for this. Any movement from Theseus would lead to soldiers drawing their arrows. The king then began to persuade Theseus, telling him that if he joined his army, he would hold a position second only to the king. History would be written by the victors, and the king promised to immortalize Theseus' name. However, faced with the choice of avenging his mother or gaining power, Theseus chose the former. The failure of their negotiations meant that a great battle was about to break out. The battle between Theseus and King Hyperion, the Titans and the Olympians, would leave only 2 winners. Everyone would fight with all their strength, and the battlefield would be drenched in blood. Theseus knew exactly what this battle represented. Upon returning, he ordered the gates to be locked. Helios was hesitant, as the Greek king was right there and had always supported peace. Just then, King Hyperion made a throat-cutting gesture. Theseus immediately thought of his mother and, disregarding the king's wishes, forcefully broke the chains of the gate. But after a moment of reflection, Theseus began to doubt himself, not because he rejected King Hyperion's offer, but because he feared failing the task that Zeus had entrusted to him, Phaedra comforted him after hearing his concerns. Soon, night faded and daylight broke, but the sky seemed unnaturally yellow, as if foretelling something important. King Hyperion and his millions of soldiers had already set up camp outside the city gates, and a great battle was about to begin. The tyrant, holding the divine bow of Hyperion, drew it before 100,000 soldiers, charging it with power, and fired an arrow glowing with holy light, breaking the previously impregnable city gates. With that single shot, the courage of the Greek soldiers, who had only just gathered their strength, shattered. They panicked and began retreating. Seeing the advancing enemy forces, the Greek soldiers dropped their shields and swords, preparing to surrender. Realizing that defeat was inevitable, Theseus stepped forward to rally their spirits, but the soldiers seemed uninterested in his words. However, through Theseus' relentless encouragement, the Greek soldiers' resolve was reignited. They picked up the weapons lying on the ground and prepared to fight. Outside the city, King Hyperion saw his opportunity and ordered his forces to launch a full-scale assault. Millions of soldiers surged toward the breach in the city wall. Theseus led the charge, fighting fiercely in the narrow alleyways with the enemy. The soldiers clashed in a brutal battle, and although outnumbered, the Greek soldiers fought with fierce determination. They vowed to defend their country's last line of defense with their shields and blood. However, King Hyperion did not join the battle. Instead, he seized the opportunity to behead the Greek king and then rushed to the temple holding the Titans. There, he once again drew the divine bow of Hyperion. The temple soon collapsed, and the Titans, imprisoned for millennia, realized they were about to be freed. Hearing the explosion, Theseus quickly joined Helios, and the two rushed to the mountain to confront the Titans. They soon broke through the enemy lines and entered the cave where the Titans were imprisoned. They discovered several towering stone statues over 100 meters tall, with King Hyperion standing directly beneath them. The two quickly ran over to stop him, but they were too late. Phaedra's foresight came true. With a powerful shockwave, everyone was knocked unconscious, and the Titan, who had been imprisoned for billions of years, was finally freed. When Theseus woke up, King Hyperion was nowhere to be found. Someone had snatched the divine bow from the king's hand. Just as they were about to hand the bow to Theseus, the recently freed Titans suddenly surrounded them. Even with the divine bow in hand, he was no match for the Titans. Once again, Theseus felt helpless, watching as the ruthless Titans hacked the already wounded Helios to death with wild axes. As the Titans were about to escape from Tartarus Mountain, a beam of holy light suddenly descended from the sky. Zeus had finally arrived with the Olympian gods to eliminate the Titans, each of them clad in golden armor, their eyes filled with determination and confidence. Originally, the gods were not allowed to interfere with human affairs, but from the moment the Titans were freed, this battle was no longer a human affair. One person tried to take the divine bow, but Zeus swung his hammer, smashing the bow into the stone to seal it. Then, he ordered Theseus to deal with King Hyperion. While the Titans would be judged here, the gods scattered, and the two divine races began a fierce battle once again. The speed of the gods was clearly several times faster than the Titans, with dazzling moves that were deadly and precise. Theseus, following Zeus's command, sought out and killed King Hyperion, but as soon as he exited the temple, the king, lying in ambush outside, launched a surprise attack. Still stunned by the shockwave, Theseus didn't react in time and was stabbed in the abdomen by the king's dagger. Meanwhile, the battle in the cave was also intense. Although the gods fought valiantly under Zeus's leadership, the Titans outnumbered them. Facing the continuously emerging Titans from underground, the outnumbered gods were killed one after another. At the same time, Theseus and King Hyperion would face their final showdown. Though Theseus had been stabbed several times in the abdomen, he didn't give up. His thirst for vengeance fueled him as he ignored the pain and jumped back to his feet. King Hyperion thought victory was assured, but he hadn't expected Theseus to suddenly unleash such powerful strength. After a struggle, Theseus, seizing the moment when the king was distracted, secretly hid a shard in his hand. When the king came closer, Theseus drove the shard into his foot, then grabbed the dagger and stabbed it into the king's body. With the king's death full of unwillingness in his eyes, Theseus finally avenged his mother's death. On Zeus's side, things were not going well. Although the gods had magnificent skills, the disparity in strength between the two sides was too great. Faced with the continuous siege by the Titans, even Athena met a tragic end at the hands of the Titans. Watching his children die, Zeus's heart was filled with immense grief. No matter what, he couldn't allow the Titans to escape Tartarus, but fighting alone was no longer an option. So, Zeus played his last card. He went to the top of the prison and pulled out 2 chains connected to the mountain, preparing to seal the Titans once more. The massive tremor soon attracted the attention of both sides in battle. At this point, both sides had no concern for victory or defeat and scattered to flee. Just before Tartarus Mountain collapsed, Zeus carried his deceased daughter Athena and returned to the divine realm, but he didn't forget the severely wounded Theseus. After the war ended, Theseus's salvation of the human world was immortalized in the sculptures of the temple. Going to the divine realm meant the death of the mortal body, but to ensure Theseus's bloodline continued, Zeus gave him a gift. Soon after, Phaedra gave birth to a son and named him Achamas. Achamas inherited his mother's gift, able to foresee the future by touch. Looking at the huge sculpture in front of him, Achamas reached out and touched it. He soon saw a terrifying vision of an even more brutal war in the near future. At that moment, a voice came from beside him, none other than Zeus, who had disguised himself as an old man to guide Theseus for many years. Theseus's task was complete, but Achamas's had just begun.